Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. I know we are sitting here for the daily, I guess, lunch and learn here. My name is Ashley Beyer, and I don't think we have any pre-submitted questions, but if anybody has any questions coming through, go ahead and drop those questions either in the chat or in the Q&A here, and I'd be happy to go ahead and work through whatever obstacle you guys got going on. Looking at the attendees list, yeah, Alex, let me go ahead and allow you to talk here. If you want to come off mute, go ahead and feel free to ask your question.
Yeah, hi there. I'm just, I have a question about a SharePoint integration. When I move from, for example, in database integrations, when I move from my development environment to my production environment, and I do the import, it prompts me to where I want to map that integration to, since the integrations, it seems, are unique to the servers. So basically, in my import, I select the integration that I've created on the production server and to map to the the thing that I'm doing in development. But with SharePoint, I don't get that option. So it seems like I have to actually bring my flow from development into production and then go into production and make a change, which to me seems to be like a kind of a problematic flow. So I'm trying to figure out a way to, get around that.
And you said this happens when you go from your
From development
testing,
from testing to production.
but is it working just the way you want it to inside of developing?
Yes.
Okay.
But there's no kind of automatic way to map the integration during the transfer from development to production. So that means I have to go into the flow in production after I've imported it and modify it to point to the integration that's been created on production.
And I apologize, maybe I'm not understanding correctly. So that's what you're doing now, and are you wanting to know if there's a little bit more streamlined way to do that, or is it not working still?
No, I mean, that works, but I don't like the idea that I'm going into production and making modifications.
Yeah, I completely understand.
The purpose of the whole development, user acceptance, production, kind of flow.
Okay. Let me go ahead and ask my support channel here if they've gone about it a different way, especially when we're talking about going from that developing stage to the production stage. As long as it was working before, I don't see why I would have to go ahead and, I guess, make those changes. But let me go ahead and ask that question to them, okay?
Okay.
Do we have any other questions while I'm reaching out real quick?
Yeah, I have another quick question, and that's about, so I'm using decisions to store documents related to particular flows. And so, I have a URL, like company name at decisions.com. And so is that kind of an immutable thing, in the sense that I actually have to update procedural documentation to say where the documents are now being stored. And so, do you guys have any, best practices around how I would provide that documentation? Like in the olden days, we would store a file on //file server /folder, kind of thing. And that's what we would put in the documentation. If you want to find these finished forms, you'd go to this network location. Whereas now that the things are kind of up in the Decisions cloud, I'm just not entirely sure how to document my work instructions.
Are you storing all these documents right here inside Decisions, or are they stored with inside, embedded inside of a flow or form?
Yeah, inside of a flow execution extension.
Okay, and we're wanting to grab that just to go ahead and view it, or are we wanting to download it?
I just basically need to document where these things are stored. So I'm just not sure how to refer to that. Do I basically just like go into the data type folder and then copy the URL? I'm just trying to figure out what the kind of best practice is around this, or how you go about saying that your data is stored in a decisions data type or flow type.
Yeah, so I know we can probably set up a process folder to where we can view all those documents there, but you actually want to go ahead and say, hey, this is being stored in like the data storage folder, correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is that each different flow flow execution extension, is a different kind of place. So I'm just like, when I document that all POs going forward will now be stored in the PO extension type, and all CapExes will be stored in the CapEx one, and all, like all of the different flows have possible documentation associated with them. So I'm just trying to figure out, I'm sure other, kind of customers have kind of gone through this and what their kind of experiences are as far as, producing documentation that talks about how stuff is stored.
Yeah, I would almost see us bringing over in, and panelists, if anybody else has any other insight here, I would see us go ahead and bring in the ID of that document itself so that we can reference it throughout those other flows to keep track of everything.
Okay. No, I guess okay. I'm just I'm not, I don't think I'm expressing myself. Like in our documentation, for a particular procedure, we will have a flow chart of how the whole thing goes. And like, for example, an auditor will come in and they'll say, okay, I noticed that you have 50 POs. Can you show me the POs? And so we're supposed to document where it is that we keep our POs and what their what governance there is kind of around them. So again, it's just because I'm kind of new to this and new to the idea of specifying like a web address as a storage location. I'm just wondering how people, like, is this a question that's been asked before, or am I kind of like on my own here?
No, sorry, was somebody else going to say something?
Yeah, so Alex, I don't know why my name says Mark Klein. I have no idea how I came in this way. But what you're looking to do is to be able to have these invoices stored correctly. You can either attach them to the folder and then have them stored inside decisions or on the file system. Which way are you trying? Sorry, I'm about halfway through the conversation trying to catch up. But which way are you trying to look to actually get them stored?
Yeah, so I'm just using them as like file attachment data on the in the flow and saving them to the process folder.
Okay.
So, but what I'm trying to figure out is, how do I represent what the process folder is in documentation? Like, I mean, I know where the stuff is and that sort of stuff, but if an auditor comes in and says, how are you guys storing your invoices? I say, I'm storing them in decisions, and they're like, okay, what's that?
Okay.
And I say, oh, that's like a URL. It's HTTPS, our company at decisions.com. But so, like, we don't really want the auditor to be asking all these questions. We want to basically put this in our documentation that we're, instead of storing it on the network, we're now storing it in decisions.
You're storing it as a serialized file data format in the database if you're storing it against the process folder.
Right.
So you're storing it as a serialized format in the database. That's actually how you're storing it. Now, if you're storing it in a file location, it'd be in the file location, but you're actually storing it as a serialized format in the database.
Okay.
For your documentation, that would be
the end result is that okay, and the URL, like mycompany.decisions.com, is that immutable, or is that going to change? Like, am I better off like basically, mapping something in through DNS so that in the eventuality that this URL changes at some point in the future, that I can always refer to my DNS address? Or is this already a DNS entry that we have control over?
The DNS entry, if we're hosting, is controlled by us. So the URL shouldn't change unless requested by your organization. Of course, then you could request documentation to change that. But the DNS is all controlled by us. So if our external IP address changes or our IP address changes, there should be no effect on your organization.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
Before I go back to Alex's earlier question, I see Chris, you've also joined too. Do you have any questions that we can answer for you?
No, I don't. I was just going to chime in on Alex's, but we use file references.
What does that mean? You use file references?
So it means they are indeed stored on the decisions server by their GUID. So the GUID is the name as opposed to just saying Chris's invoice. They also have URLs, but they also have a file reference ID. And we attach that to the metadata. Our documentation it's stored on the decisions. Well, it's actually attached storage to the decision server. But that isn't something that auditors should be accessing directly anyway. It's here's your invoice folder. You can click on any invoice you want and view or download it. And they're stored in storage on the file server. And that's what we do.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, again, this is kind of new, but like I'm, for example, in my folder inside of my flow execution extension type, and if I click on any one of these things, it basically shows me the process history and collaboration, right, by state. And in there, I'm seeing my document. For testing purposes, I just have a document called upload.txt. But in this, kind of process view page is, this is, I think, where the stuff is stored. So from a documentation point of view, do I actually just say that it's, stored in the process folder of the flow?
I mean, yes, but it wasn't actually Mark's earlier point. If you are doing file data, it is literally stored in the database itself. So if they really want to know where this is stored, it is stored as part of the database.
Okay. Okay, so basically from that point of view, like all I'm basically providing them with is the URL.
Yeah, I mean, it would be the same thing if they said, well, where are you storing the amount of the invoice? In the database.
Right. Yeah. No, like for example, like in our ERP system, that's where our POs live, and so consequently, all the PO data is inside the SQL tables. But we also have a procedure that where we print the POs to PDF and save them on the file system. And so that's part of our documentation, that if you want to basically see the archive of all POs, you don't actually necessarily have to go through the the POs in the ERP system, because those even are on a cycle whereby they get removed on a I don't know what the interval is, like say 10 years or whatnot. So, but for the actual archive of any PO that's ever been done, it's actually a file system location. So the documentation says go to such and such a file server, such and such a folder, and you'll be able to find all your POs. So that's the kind of thing that, I mean, yes, anyone who wants to basically look at a PO can go into like an admin dashboard that I've created to see any PO that's ever been created. But if they want to see any files that have been stored, like quotes from suppliers or that sort of stuff that are getting stored with the PO, I'm just trying to figure out how to specify that in our documentation if you want to.
Well, it's really though that, I mean, they can't. It's not like browsing to, you know, the E drive under invoices and you can just look through the files.
Yeah,
Your folder is basically taking the place of this. And this would be the same. I mean, this isn't just a decisions thing. We have other programs where we do indeed store files in the database.
right.
You can't browse to those. You can't browse a database. It's an encrypted blob
yeah.
storage field.
Gotcha. Yeah, okay, appreciate that.
Yeah, and thanks, Chris, for go ahead and stepping in there. Once we started talking, I was like, oh, I know exactly who this is. I think we met at Decision Days.
Yes, we did.
Yes, she's a very smart woman. I know that.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome. Alex, I want to go ahead and revisit your earlier question. I think Tyler was the one that was actually speaking earlier. I know it says that he's Mark, but Tyler, if you had a second, Alex's question that I was trying to get answered for him is he has an integration with SharePoint. And when he takes it from a development environment and turns it over into his product environment, basically that integration is broken. Is that correct, Alex? And so we have to go in through manually and make those changes inside of our production environment, which he's done and it's working. However, he was wondering if there was a better way to go about it, so that way he doesn't have to actually do anything inside of the production environment.
Yeah. So again, like the example that makes perfect sense to me is the database integration, where during the import, it asks you where you want to move this this integration to, and then you basically browse to the integration on the production server. You know, click the database that you're interested in, say import, and it knows that what you're bringing over from development, even though the integration isn't the same at a GUID level or whatnot, it knows to map what I'm bringing from development into what I've created previously in production.
And Tyler may not be able to go ahead and pin down an exact answer for us. What we may have to do, Alex, is actually go ahead and test it out ourselves and then follow up with you. Is there a good email to reach back out to you at once we have a better answer for you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Or do we have that email for him? Or if you want to drop it in chat, either way works.
I'm sorry, what email are you looking for?
He just put it in chat. It's all good.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead and kind of, and like I said, what we may have to do is actually test through it ourselves and walk through it, whether that be like a screen recording that we send over to you, or maybe getting you back on another Zoom call. Let's see if we can help you out a little bit there. Any other questions you have for us, Alex?
Not at this moment.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
And Chris already knows so much. I'm sure she doesn't have any questions either.
I'm just hanging out to hear what comes up.
Sounds good. Okay, so if we don't have any other questions, the only other thing I had prepared for us was to run through a little bit of reporting and dashboards. Do you guys currently use reports and dashboards at all?
Yes.
We
Yes,
sure do.
okay, perfect. I don't know how well versed you guys are on this, so if I'm going over stuff that you already know, I apologize. I get a little excited when we start talking about dashboards and stuff. I prepared some of the information coming through, so I actually did a simple entity for us, and it's all going to be pulling through our invoice report here. Just to kind of show you what that invoice report looks like, we're bringing in a few different filters. The reason why I go ahead and set up these filters is that way later on, I can actually go ahead and add data over here on the side too. So that way I can actually have the nice little pie charts or bar graphs that are those visuals on our dashboard there. Now, when I go ahead and look at the ones I've already created, I'm able to go ahead and see everything pretty large. If I want to change any of these colors, I don't know if you guys have played around with this, but we can actually use the default base colors and add a few other colors just to go ahead and maybe make that dashboard a little bit more seamless with your branding and styling of the company too. I'm going to go ahead and save out of here, and then we're actually going to start building out the dashboard. I did prep it just a little bit for this dashboard here. So that way we had a label up top and then the grid layout was perfect. For my dashboard, I'm sure you guys could go ahead and use a report viewer at some point so that we can see all the data coming through. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick that report real quick. Maybe. We'll go back. And we'll see that actually pull up once we go ahead and paste that page somewhere else. I know it's a little confusing when we start building things out just because we don't see that report actually pop up, but we will once we actually view that as a portal. From here, I like to add a few key performance indicator tiles. So I do this by a diagram tile. And I'm just going to go ahead and just drag and drop it into place here. And then I'm going to go ahead and start setting that up.
This is being recorded, right?
Yeah, it is.
And it gets sent up onto YouTube?
Maru, is it posted up on YouTube, right?
Yes, it will. This
Great.
afternoon, after 3 o'clock.
Awesome, thank you. What I do for my diagram tiles, usually the information we're bringing over is I've seen people do everything from applications in progress. Maybe we're looking at the amount for this month, little things like that. So we're actually going to build this out dynamically. Up here where I've dragged and dropped these labels, we're going to go ahead and change this first label, and we're going to go ahead and do invoices for Henry. And that's going to be the label that goes ahead and just tells us what this next number is. To make this dynamic, pulling it off of the information from the reports itself, we're actually going to do label from data down here. I'm going to go ahead and click off and then click back on here, and it's going to go ahead and have us do an input. So to go ahead and get all this started, we're going to go ahead and set up an input variable up here, and I'm just going to do invoices from Henry. And we'll actually go ahead and change this now instead of it being a string or a text value. And we're going to go ahead and make it a decimal, or we could also do an integer too. Then I'm just going to go ahead and pick from the data here, invoices from Henry. And we're going to save. If we wanted to add a cute little image, we absolutely go ahead and add it on here. We can go ahead and choose from a URL or even upload. I think there's also a little bit of clip art that Decision does. This is really nice when we start looking at like request approved versus request denied. We can add different colors to these images, and that way it's just that visual for those people looking at the dashboard. I'm going to go ahead and just keep this one pretty simple. And then from here, we also have now a second button below. So this goes ahead and edits what we see visually, like the label and where the text is going to be centered at. Now I need to go ahead and make a flow to go ahead and, instead of it saying step 2, actually bring in a number. So from here, we're going to go ahead and do a fetch entity step right there. Bringing in, so on this fetch entity step, I want to bring in that entity I was using earlier. So we're going to go ahead and do user defined types, and then I'm going to go ahead and do my lunch and learn invoices that I created for us. And then down here, we're going to go ahead and add some fetch criteria. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to sort via the company and just have it make sure it contains Henry. Now I usually leave the alias blank down here just because we're actually going to go ahead and input it down here at the bottom instead. So our sorting field is going to be the company. And then down here, when we're looking at our inputs, we're going to change this now to constant, and we're going to do Henry. Ooh, if I can type. We want to go ahead and connect that now to where it says no results and results. So it brings it over, and we're going to go ahead and press save. Now, before I exit out of this, I apologize. One of the best practices is to go ahead and save often. So that's what I was just doing there. We do have our end step that's just throwing that validation error. All it wants us to do is go ahead and pick what we're bringing through. Because of this fetch entity step, we are actually bringing through the output should be entity results. So that's what we're going to choose here. It's just entity results. And because we want a number, we're going to do count. Press done, goes away, save, and we're going to go back out to that diagram. And that will actually populate right here. Any questions before I move on to the next one? Because I'm going to do the same thing, only we're going to add on to it the next time.
So is this similar to version 6?
You should be able to go ahead and do a label from data in version 6. I guess I should have asked you that earlier, Alex. I apologize. Are you
No, no.
currently in version 6?
Yes, and actually that kind of leads on to another question, which is there some like a kind of document on how to convince people to go to a higher version, like benefits kind of thing?
I don't know if we have like so you're wanting like a comparison between version 6 and version 7? Yep. That's a good question, Maru. Do you know if we have that comparison from version 6 to version 7? I imagine we would, correct?
I don't have I don't have that answer for you right now. We would have to get back with him later, or if anybody else within our team members can answer that for him. Mark, do you know?
That's fine. We can go ahead and when we follow up with you, Alex, about the integration with Salesforce, we'll go ahead and add that in there too. If we've got that documentation, let's go ahead and get it over to you. Is that something you guys have been looking at here recently?
No, I mean, I'm just noticing that you're in 7, and I have seen in 7 there are some things that interest me. The way that everything has kind of been, whatever the visibility flows and all that sort of stuff has been kind of lumped together into a new kind of object. But I need to put together a list of all of the great reasons why we should move from whatever we are 6.18 to, because I'm noticing, I think you guys are even like working on an 8 now, so. Seems like
I'm actually still on 7. I think 8 is about to be released. I don't think we've released it just yet, but yeah, we definitely are working on the next versions coming out.
And do you also like, is there like an end of life for any of these versions, or is this are you guys always supporting every version you've ever created?
It looks like we got the, sorry, I just kind of looked over a second, and it looks like we did get a few different articles for that version 7 that you were talking about, Alex. So go ahead and check in the chat there. But from my understanding, and I don't know that we are discontinuing anything. Again, if we've started to, and I just don't know yet, we'll go ahead and make sure we follow up with you there as well.
Great.
Awesome. Okay, just to go ahead and show you guys what I just did though too, I just duplicated my tab up here at the top and I came over to the dashboard. So this is exactly what we just built out. It's the invoice for Henry's, and we see that it actually populated 3 because in our report, we've got 3 right here. I think it's pretty cool. That way it's dynamic like that. It does look like we got a question that came through. Josh is asking, can we pull via direct query from a external database connection? I believe, is that what that is? Josh, are you off of mute? Do you want to go ahead and chime in here?
Hi there. Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm looking, I have some external DB connections set up, and I'm looking to pull data from my database structures and decisions into our external connections. They're set up with Postgres. And I just wanted to see if you had any thoughts on different ways to do it or the best way to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sorry, you've been kind of cutting out a little bit. So you've got some external sources that you want to go ahead and connect decisions to go ahead and start outputting some of that database information. Is that right?
A step beyond that, I have the connection set, and I want to start pulling data within decisions into our internal in-house databases via direct query with SQL. Yep. Yeah, I have working puts. I can already take data from my decisions database structures and put them on our Postgres. I already have that working. And I just wanted to explore a bit with you how to do it the other way around. Maybe, maybe I'm making it overcomplicating it.
No, you're okay. You're okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go into a flow. We'll create a new one. I believe it's probably going to be as simple as just creating a step. Again, anybody who wants to chime in, please go ahead and chime in here. I believe we're probably going to need the ODBC connection, and then we'll be able to.
That's interesting. So I have the driver already because I've used it with other tools. So it's a simple
Okay.
with decisions then, and OBDC. Okay.
I think we might need to do like an integration setup.
Okay.
And then it should go ahead and automatically create steps over here.
Okay.
Have you created an integration yet?
Yep. I'm gonna pull up. You know what? It's weird today. I went into decisions and I can't see anything. It's blank.
Are you switched over into your portal at all?
Switch to portal. I'm in portal, go back to studio. Weird, the text is white. On all my entities, the text is white.
Are you working off of Google Chrome?
Yes,
Do you use dark mode?
I do.
Okay, so I use dark mode as well. I've heard just today that we've had a few people have the text go white. Do you know how to go ahead and turn off the dark mode just for a few minutes so we can look at decisions together?
Okay, sure. I'll do that.
I know that we've been working on a dark side for decisions, which I'm excited about, but still in progress. So we should be able to go into our systems folder here and then go over to integrations. And let me know when you're there.
Okay.
So inside of here, you should be able to add your DB or query here too.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so simple enough.
And if you have any questions after you get going and stuff, feel free to go ahead and either join another Lunch and Learn again or send us some questions.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
I do have another question.
Go for it.
So I've been pulling data from Excels with a for each Excel step. And I did the mapping, it works. However, in one of my tables, the rows are actually, it's a list. It's a list of cash flow. And when it shows up in my report and then on in the report viewer on the page, they're coming up as individual entries with unique IDs. And I've been trying to figure out how to merge those. So for example, in one of my Excel tables, I have 25 lines, and all 25 lines, it's a list. It should be associated with the same ID. How can I merge those? How can I associate that each row in the Excel is actually just a list, a part of associated to the same ID?
Let me bring in the Excel document real quick because I've got one that's got a little bit of mock data in it for us. So you're wanting an entire set of data to come into one unique ID. Is that what you're asking for?
Correct. And I use the for each Excel step.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
Yeah.
You said it was the for each Excel?
There it is. So that's it. Yeah, I use that one. and I map to my worksheet and the rows, the mapping works, the import worked.
So is it just one field that comes back as a list, or is it the entire thing comes back as a list?
Yeah, the opposite actually. It's not coming in as a list.
And we want it to.
Exactly. I'm getting the individual rows as its own entry with its own ID.
So I'm wondering if instead of using this step, we need to use the one that I brought over, because I think what's going to happen here is that it's going to take it in for each Excel row,
Okay.
which may be why you're not getting a list like that. You're getting each individual line. Have you tried using the import first and then
Yep.
mapping?
Yep, I have that on another flow working. Okay, so
Okay. And is the other flow a list as well, or?
it's not a list, it's just one row.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and see. Go through. We did have some extra lines items over here. All I did was go ahead and put everything to ignore real quick. It may take a little bit for the mapping here.
Yeah.
That being said,
Yeah,
I would go ahead, yeah. So it's going to go ahead and map it to each one of those data fields. Inside of your data structure, do you have it coming through saving as a list at all, or is it just going to be individual data fields?
You know what? My data structures are not set up as lists.
Okay.
So it should be, right?
If you're wanting your data field to be a list itself, then we'll need to go ahead and set it up as a list.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, go ahead and try that, and then let us know. Again, go ahead and send us an email or reach out to us or come back in on another lunch and learn. I know we've got a great support team too. So
Yeah, I usually work with Mike.
perfect.
Okay, great. Appreciate it, Ashley.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So I do have another question if there's no one else.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So I have how to explain this. I have 5 separate database structures. They're separate tables that are a part of a parent database. And I've generated in a workflow, I've generated a GUID with the generate GUID step. And I've associated each of those 4 tables to that GUID. However, I'm still troubleshooting on how to set up the data pairing. I think that's the part I'm missing is the tables aren't necessarily associating with that GUID. And I think the step I'm missing is data pairing. And I don't know if you have experience with that.
What type of data structures are all 4 of them inside the parent data structure?
They're least database structures. Some are list and some are not list.
Okay. I don't have experience with data pairing there. We've got a question to follow up with Alex as well too. So we can go ahead and take that offline and then send back an email response to you, seeing where we can go ahead and have that pairing.
Okay. Yeah, there's some tech docs. I've been going through those.
Yeah.
Ashley,
Our documentation is amazing, so.
I'd be super curious on the answer because
Yeah.
We don't use list database structures, but we have our own ERP database and all of that. And I just go get the GUID out of whatever is the main table and then stick it in a field on my related one as a foreign key. And that's all I've been doing to relate them.
That's the easiest way to do it, honestly.
The thing is, my 4 child tables are generated before the parent table.
Oh,
No, yeah. It's kind of a different sequence.
so you have to go back then. You've got 5 tables that have data in it, and you have to go find the parent and get that.
Create it. Create the.
Create the parent, get that
Mhm.
GUID, and put that back on the tables.
Yep, exactly.
Well, that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
And what's the use case of why you're creating the child tables first over the parent table? Is it because you're combining data from the child to the parents?
It's so the workflow is a quote, and the 4 child tables are kind of the building blocks of a quote. So the parent table is the actual quote itself, but to actually make the quote, we have to make 4 separate tables by 4 different teams. And then those are combined into a quote that's sent to a client.
Well, you can always do it. It's 4 columns in the parent table. You can always just pass, if those 4 child tables are always needed, you can always pass the 4 GUIDs of the child rows in the child row in the table and put it into the actual parent one. Do it the opposite way.
That's it. So then, so I'd have to have another GUID for the quotes, and then pair the GUIDs of the child tables to the quote GUID.
Yep.
Okay.
Which you should, every record should have its own unique GUID. So it should be just, I wouldn't do it store as a list. I store as 4 individual fields because GUIDs are easier to use as fields. And then do it that way.
Okay. Makes sense. Okay, I appreciate it. Yeah, it would have been easier if the parent table existed first, but
Nope, I understand it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Tyler, for helping out on that too. So I know we've got about 15 minutes left. If you guys are okay with staying on for that 15 minutes, I'm just going to go ahead and keep going through a little bit more of that dashboard and finish that out there. Or if you guys need to hop off, that's perfectly fine too. Again, remember this is recorded and will be uploaded later on the YouTube channel too. So if you have any questions that you think about too, please feel free to stop me. I'm coming back over into this dashboard here. This time I'm going to go ahead and build down to that diagram tile just a little bit. And we're actually going to go ahead and add some different colors and styling to it, just so it's easier to view. And this one, we're going to go ahead and do total invoices. I'm going to come back over to annotation here and bring in just a label up top here. So we can go ahead and come over to our text and do total invoices. Another label that we'll go ahead and bring in as label from data later on. And then I'm also going to go ahead and bring in that image this time, just that way we have that nice visual representation. Down here at the bottom, I get to actually go ahead and pick that image. And we should be able to search for maybe a form here and bring up, yep, perfect. So it's going to bring up a form here. I can then go ahead and pick the color that I want. I like this because we can go ahead and do green for approved or red for denied, little things like that, just to go ahead and make it a little bit more apparent, especially as we have people approving those different steps. Now we can't forget to go ahead and come back and do the input for our label from data. I'm gonna go ahead and set up input here and just do total invoices. Real quick, we're gonna make this a decimal and save. Creating that down here at the bottom for our text inputs, we're just gonna go ahead and pick and then do the total invoices. If we wanted to add on to this more, absolutely we could. I'm gonna go ahead and just have that picture there for us. I'm gonna go ahead and press X here, and that's when we get our second button down below. We're gonna go ahead and build out a form or flow, excuse me, to go ahead and bring in that actual total number for us. So to do so, again, we're going to do the fetch entity step. bringing in that entity that we had earlier for the invoices. And then we're also going to go ahead and add fetch criteria right here. We're going to go ahead and do, we'll just go ahead and do the company again. But this time we'll go ahead and do, basically we're looking for everything. So we'll do contains. And we'll leave that blank down at the bottom for the alias. And then for the sorting field, we also get to go ahead and pick company again. And then down here at the bottom, we could go ahead and do the constant variable. I think we did Henry's last time. So if we're looking for an overall, well, I guess if we're looking for an overall, we could just actually do no filters. Bring in results here. So what I did was I backtracked a little bit. I'm sorry, y'all, and did no filters on here because we actually want a total amount. I connected it to my end step here, and on my end step, what we're actually going to do is now come through pick from flow and do entity results and do count. This is going to give me the count for all entity results in total. We're going to press save here, go back out, and I'm just going to go ahead and press save on this dashboard. So my duplicate tab here, I can come back out to my dashboard and actually see that populate right here in the middle of the screen. Any questions about doing a total from the fetch entity versus the filter there? We doing good? Beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to spice up my dashboard just a little bit. And this time we're actually going to go ahead and bring in a bars chart over here to the side and just go ahead and pick from before. And that should go ahead and bring that through. And this is actually filtered by company. Press save. And then we should be able to go ahead and see that update over here as well. I don't love the way that looks, so we might go ahead and do a different bar chart here. When we talk about dashboards, we definitely want to go ahead and make sure that as we're going through and doing our tiles onto here or labels, that things like this don't happen, because we need to have that spatial awareness, as well as it's got to be readable, especially if we're talking about somebody pulling up on their laptop screen there working from home or something. It needs to be able to be viewed by even the smallest screens here. So let's go ahead and try a part chart here instead. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and pick that from before and give it a nice title. Now I should be able to press save and see that update over here as well. Yep. A little bit better. It's still not perfect the way I'd want it, but it looks a lot better than it did before with that line chart. I know we're kind of running at the end of this lunch and learn here. I just wanted to kind of go through mostly those key performance indicator tiles that we normally see across different dashboards, but everybody asks, how do we get there? And just using that fetch entity step on your diagram tile goes a long way for us. Okay, guys, so I know follow-up items. Alex, we're going to go ahead and follow up on that Salesforce integration for you. And then Josh, we had a few other items to follow up with you as well. I think Tyler might have answered your question there for the.
What is the Salesforce question, Ashley?
It's actually
yeah.
SharePoint.
SharePoint.
I'm sorry.
So what is a SharePoint question?
Yeah, so the SharePoint question was he's had everything built inside development. And then when he actually moves that to the production stage, then that integration is lost. And he actually has to go inside of the production and edit those flows inside there to reattach that connection. And he was wondering if there was a way that he didn't have to do that where it didn't break, because he is not a fan of touching production environments.
No, and I understand that.
Yeah.
That does sound like an issue between I'm assuming you have a repo environment in between them, Alex?
I do, but it's not I'm not using it right now. So right now the behavior is do my development on the dev server, export it, go to the production server and import it.
Okay. And when you do that export, are you including the folder dependencies, or how are you doing the export?
I'm basically just exporting the project.
Okay, does the project have the SharePoint integration in there, or no?
I'm imagining that
It might not. So I would double check that
okay.
first and open a support ticket, because that if it's not working like that, if it's including the project and not going from dev to prod, there's definitely something wrong. So
Yeah,
we
so
look at
I
that.
guess I'm thinking that the problem is going to be is that the integration in dev is not necessarily pointing to the same spot as the integration in prod, right? Because then we'd have a problem where we were like putting test documents in production.
Correct. So to save you some time, Alex, here's what I would do. I believe in simplicity. So what I would do is create a global constant or global variable that is your SharePoint link to difference between prod and production. So, and then have those flows look at that link, that lookup list, or the link to global constant as the point of there. So when you go from development to production, production to development, it's always looking at that one point, and you have that one field in each environment, one for dev and one for production, and that will solve your problem. That makes sense?
No.
Okay.
So, I mean, if I have a global variable and they're both pointing to the same spot, then aren't I back in the position of putting test documents in?
So go to your system, Ashley. Go into designers. Go up into, let's just look at, you can look up lists and constants. On down, L. Up, up, up.
Sorry,
There you
now.
go. So I would just add define constants and just call it SharePoint. Hit save. Oh, change the type, sorry. So edit it. Go down the top and change it to, from password, drop down, change it to string, and then put in www.google.com. And what you're calling, Alex, is the constant, the int name of the constant, and not the string value. The string value can be separate for production and dev. So the string value is actually the URL of the SharePoint between production and dev, and you're calling the entity name a SharePoint. And as long as the entity name is constant between dev and production, you can go between both systems without issue.
Okay, I'm just setting up a different global constant on each one of those servers. Okay, got it.
Yep, but to make it easier to go import and export, they got to be the entity names got to be the same.
Okay, gotcha.
So you can seamlessly move between production and dev, and the string variable inside of that global constant, of course, is different between dev and production.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
Josh, you said you turned off dark mode and that the studio font is still white.
Yes. Yeah. The font's white because the background's white. Just can't read anything. It's strange. Last night I was working till 8 p.m. and it was.
Josh.
Hello?
I'm having the exact same issue. Start for me today.
Okay. Is this?
Are you using Chrome?
I'm in Chrome and I turned off dark mode and same thing. Still font is white.
Okay, let me look at that, because I've noticed I have quite a few websites, like even my Gmail is acting funny today with the update that Google did. Like some places that used to be dark mode in my Google Gmail are now white. They shouldn't be. It's white on white, just like his decision. So I'm afraid it's some update that Google's done
Maybe.
that caused the problem.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm on the decisions website. The font is just white. It doesn't seem like a Google issue.
Do you have a different application like Internet Explorer or something like that you can pull it up through?
I'll try.
And Tyler, I don't know if you've tried the same thing or not. I use dark mode too, but I haven't had that issue yet. I don't know if the update just hasn't hit my computer yet. I'll keep my fingers crossed over here. But I wonder if it would be the same.
No
in
issue.
something
In,
else to
I have
figure
no
out.
issue in Edge.
Okay,
Edge is fine. So it's a Chrome issue.
yeah. That's what I was trying to narrow down to. If it really was a Chrome issue there.
And Ashley, if you want me to share my screen, I can show the difference real fast.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you can see right here, this right here is this is Chrome. This is my Chrome browser. As you can see right here, I'm in my folder here, my apps. If I go down to my settings folder right here, as you can see, of course, all of these will be the same. If I simply bring Edge over, Edge is fine. So it's definitely a Chrome issue. We can work on that. I would put a support ticket in, Josh, but unfortunately, this is a browser dependent issue, not a decisions issue. And I'm working on it myself, trying to figure it out. Because it came up for me today. All the white text, all the text is just white. I still have dark mode turned on, as you can see. And I have dark mode turned on in Internet Explorer Edge too.
I'll flip up a ticket.
Thank you.
So just out of curiosity, is there a glossary of the symbols that are used in the dependency browser?
I don't know. Maurice, do you know the question? I don't know if there is.
Say one more time.
Is there an, like in the dependency browser, is there a glossary of all those icons and what they mean? Like, does it mean a flow, a rule in the dependency browser?
I'm not sure.
It's a good question. We can take it back.
Only two dots come to my mind are the browser and the Chrome. Chrome custom options that we have, but I don't think we have anything else that can relate to that off the top of my head. Let me see.
So what he's asking for is, let me go to flow. He's saying, do we have a logic to tell what all of these are? Is that correct, Alex?
Yeah. And look, in 7, it's so much more beautiful than in 6. Oh my God.
Oh, this isn't 7,
Okay. This is what?
8.
Okay.
I'm on the beta of 8. So you're going to preview beta of 8. I'm on the
Oh my
beta of
goodness.
8. Yeah, I'm on the
But
beta
yeah,
of 8.
but that's the principle. Like, is there a glossary around all the symbols that are possibly displayed within the dependency browser?
Now they do tell you the name right here. So it says it's a form. It does tell you with the new version that it tells you what type it is, but I don't think there's a glossary of the actual,
Yeah, they don't. I don't think I have that in version 6.
not in version 6. No.
So there's another reason to go to a higher version.
Yes.
Okay, guys. If we don't have any other questions, we're right here at the top of the hour. So that's probably going to go ahead and conclude our lunch and learn for today. Our next one is probably going to be Monday since it's Thursday here, and just tune in back at the same time.
Okay, that was great. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for the questions, and Chris for jumping in with some great input there too.
Well, thank you very much. I always enjoy these.
Of course. Good to see you again too, Chris.
Good seeing you.
All right, have a good day, y'all. Bye.
See y'all.